I'm sitting here with the Dr. Pastor, who's written a book called The North American Idea. And I wanted to start off by asking you, I know North America is a region, a place I grew up. Why is it an idea?
It's an idea because it has promise that exceeds its geography. It has promise for each of the three member states of North America. For Mexico, it means a road to the first world economically. For the United States, I believe it means a road to a new style of leadership for the 21st century. And for Canada, it offers Canada an opportunity to lead and to define North America in terms of lean advisory institutions that transcend national sovereignty and that deal with domestic issues that are now transnational in scope. So as an idea, it helps all three peoples to think beyond themselves and to think about a future in which they're transforming their own self-definition, self-image into something larger and something more promising for the 21st century.
How does this fit into this increasing networked world we have, where identity isn't as geographically based as it used to be? Is there more than geography that binds these nations?
There's a lot. In the book, I have a chapter called The Genetic Code of North America. And I start back 65 million years ago when an asteroid hit the Yucatan and reconfigured geologically all of North America. And I trace the history of the migration out of Asia 30,000 years ago through all of North America, and then the colonial history, which are three parts of the European mind, the Spanish, the English, the French, that ultimately morphed into independence movements, creating a very distinct nations, three very distinct nations. But starting almost based on the geography, there also is a North American genetic code that threads its way through the three countries and gives three peoples a chance to be a part of something larger. It first occurred to me when I was traveling in Europe, and I would meet Mexicans and Canadians, and I would feel almost as if we had more in common than anybody else. It hit me first in Spain when both the Mexican and myself said, we have more in common than we do with Spain, even though we have the language with Spain. So I think that particularly young people are beginning to realize that they have a relationship across all of North America, and an additional identity, because we are now people of many identities. But the one identity that hasn't taken root yet is North America. And it's my hope that with this book and with the vision that I describe in this book, we will add another identity to everybody, the identity of North America.
Great. Well, just to challenge you a little bit on that point, in Canada in particular, our largest diaspora community is in China. And in many ways, with the decision on Keystone XL, we're looking to the Pacific. There's even been an argument that we could be a Pacific nation. So how are we supposed to, why should Canada choose the United States, where growth isn't very high, versus China, when there is this opportunity for immense growth in emerging nations?
I don't think that Canada should choose just one country. I think Canada has multiple identities as well. It's a European country, it's a French country, it's a British country, it's an Asian country, it's a North American country. You can choose many different identities. But the real point is that it sits in North America. Asia is 12,000 miles away. And you can relate to them, you can trade with them, and you're trading more and more, but your biggest trading partner remains to the south. And the economies are much more connected with each other. And the future of your prosperity will depend much more on an ability to create a continental market than it will be to get greater access to the Asian market. I think that's a simple economic, empirically sound conclusion. So Canada can be many things and can choose what it wants to do, but it cannot leave North America.
Well, I think that's a very good point. Now, on Keystone XL, what do you think this decision by the American government has meant for the North American relationship?
Well, Keystone XL was handled very poorly by the U.S. government and to a lesser extent by Canada as well. It got tied up with a very polarized political debate in an election year campaign in which Americans haven't really resolved whether their highest priority is to curb carbon emissions or whether their highest priority is to enhance energy security. And indeed, different constituents have become the principal advocates of each of these. The Republican Party is more concerned about energy security. The Democratic Party is more concerned about climate change and the environment. And so this became tied up with that. And it was compounded by the fact that this pipeline is going near one of the major aquifers in the Plains states under Nebraska. And the Republican governor of Nebraska said, we won't permit this. So this is a very difficult and awkward political decision on the part of the president. But I think that we need to get beyond that decision, and we need to think hard, all three countries, about what's the appropriate balance between energy security and curbing carbon emissions. Because we're going to need oil and gas for a long time to come, but we also have to do something about climate change and curbing carbon emissions. And if the three of our countries, Canada, the US, and Mexico, could all sit down together and decide how together we are going to mesh these two objectives and to deal with that trade-off effectively, then I think decisions like Keystone will become much easier. And I think that all three countries can follow the same pattern.
Now, for political progress on this North American idea, should it really be the federal governments leading the way forward? Or are there other vehicles, civil society, sub-national units that could lead progress on this issue?
There are many ways to march forward on North America. Border communities in the Northwest and in the southwest part of the United States with Mexico and the Northeast as well, all have a vital stake in deepening integration among our countries. They could take the lead. I think businesses have a strong interest in making sure that they produce products for a wider market. They could take the lead. I think governors, provincial governors, state governors in the United States and Canada and Mexico all could take the lead. But it would be a real shot in the arm if the national leaders chose to take the lead. And in fact, I think Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper has an absolutely unique opportunity to shape the future of North America. Because we've seen with NAFTA itself, NAFTA started as a U.S.-Canadian agreement, then it became a U.S.-Mexican agreement, and then Canada said, we want to be a part of U.S.-Mexico. That was the origin of NAFTA. Canada once again can take the lead in defining this, but it has to collaborate with Mexico, which the government has not been willing to do very effectively. If it did that, I think the United States would be open to new transnational trilateral initiatives.
When you say that Prime Minister Harper has the opportunity, is that simply because of timing that's outside of his own vision for North America? I mean, looking at Canadian politics right now, and particularly the domestic concern with crime, do you think it's realistic that Harper will take the lead for a North American vision that includes Mexico?
Well, when I said that he has an opportunity to take the lead, I meant Mexicans have tried and failed. Mm-hmm. If the United States were to take the initiative, Canada and Mexico would be suspicious. Therefore, Canada is the default option. Canada has that chance. Now, will he do it? So far, he hasn't shown any inclination to do so. He continues to define Canadian policy in terms of the special relationship with the United States, believing that will deliver all of the goods that he wants. I think he will discover it won't. And my argument is that both from an idealistic and from a practical standpoint, it's in Canada's interest to collaborate with Mexico, define a North American agenda in both broad and specific terms, and together invite the United States into that discussion to agree on the whole North American initiative.
Now, one last question. In terms of international relations, this regional vision, and as you mentioned, it's being pushed at Davos right now by Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group. But Ian Bremmer, in his piece in The Atlantic on a regional global future, makes the point that a regional global future is second best to a global political order. In particular, on issues like climate change, we're resorting to regional solutions because global solutions have failed. Do you agree that it's a second best option?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be far better if there was universal agreement on new world trade talks, on world investment decisions, on environmental and climate decisions, on peacekeeping issues. Far better if the United Nations or global organizations, the WTO, were taking the lead. But I think what we've seen is that they have reached the limit of their usefulness at this current point in time. The organizations are far too complex with too many interests. So we need to find alternative ways to advance the debate, because if you don't, you fall backwards. And North America provides a wonderful opportunity, because if we succeed in North America, we don't have to try to persuade anybody of our model and of our formula. Everybody will want to do it and will do it themselves. So I think that global governance is at a standstill, and it's advisable to move towards regional laboratories, if you will, that can test out policies and ideas. If they work, then they can go global.